Hi, everyone, and hi, Manpreet. Thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the amazing improvement from a 595 to a 675 with a perfect Q90, a V81, and D80. Congrats.
Thank you so much, Rita.
So, I know you very well because I've been your mentor through this GMAT journey. But for our viewers who are meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Manpreet Dash, a grad from IIT Kharagpur, currently working in the technology sector on emerging tech innovations. Uh, a huge cricket lover, and absolutely happy that India has won the Cricket World Cup recently.
I'm sure you've already endeared yourself to half our audience, and on the losing side, maybe not as much. But you're on the winning side right now with that 675, right? And I know that you've put in a whole lot of effort into this journey. Looking back retrospectively, what do you think was the biggest challenge that you had to overcome to 675?
Yeah. Uh, in my opinion, without going into the specifics of the topics, I think GMAT is a lot about mindset. So I think that's the first key insight I would like to share. That the biggest challenge is this exam deserves attention and deserves the focus. We tend to underestimate it a little bit when we start off the journey. So I think I would just keep it to that. That's the biggest insight, that it's more it requires a lot more structured preparation, and it requires you to put in a lot of attention, smart efforts. So that would be my key insight about the GMAT.
Absolutely. More than fair, right? It is half the battle is that mindset piece, absolutely. And I think the place where we really saw that play out really well is quant. You started off the quant journey with a Q83 and now you're at a Q90. And you did the entire quant course really very, very diligently, right? So looking back, how did the quant course and the structure of the same really help you make that improvement to 100 percentile?
Sure. So ideally, I've been fairly strong at quant, but when I took that first mock test, it wasn't a perfect score. So that is exactly why I mentioned about you need structured practice and preparation. You might be coming from heavy quant background, but to get to do well on the GMAT, I think it requires a little bit more than than the skills. And when you are too many years into the professional world out of college, you tend to lose touch. So what really helps is you take a structured approach to the preparation to cover all the concepts and all the basics. And when I started with the eGMAT course, uh, there the best thing was I was able to see which were the areas I lacked and which were my strong areas. So there is an accelerated way you can do the course as well, where you
Pace.
can save a lot of, yeah, the pace. So you can save a lot of time, and that really helped. So I was consistently seeing that there were a few topics where uh, I was probably taking a little more time, and that was getting a dominoes effect into my quant score. I was not concentrating. So I think in terms of the way the course is structured, it is very beautifully structured. It is like you can see all the topics, and the level of detail to which that the quant course goes actually covers you pretty much like sorted for the real GMAT. And the second thing is, I think the difficulty of the quant questions that I saw on the eGMAT would be the right representative of what I saw on the real GMAT, as compared to say an OG, where the questions are a little easier. So, and the second aspect is the cementing quizzes actually got me into the mindset of how to do the questions in time.
Mhm.
Like, because I think in quant, if everybody got like 10 minutes extra, you would get everything correct. So the whole challenge is about how to manage time and how to actually deal with something when you are not able to figure it out in those 2 to 3 minutes. So for that, you need a rock solid conceptual base, which I was able to build through the by doing the course very diligently. And second is you also need time practice, which, and obviously not just time practice, but also you need a mechanism that informs you on what your solid areas are. So basically what the eGMAT course forced me to do was a cementing at the end of every subtopic. So that's great because at the end of every subtopic, you kind of get an indication of where you stand in a timed environment. So that was a very, very high value to me. I kind of figured out which areas I lacked.
Mhm.
I kind of worked intentionally on those areas a little bit more than the others. So I,
Understood. And if we take a quick second to actually maybe look at what you've done, right? So this is your uh, number properties course, right? And we can see here, those time savings that have kicked in when you really knew the concept well, right? And that's a consistent thing. Wherever you knew the concepts, you were able to skip it, but you were also able to focus on these process skills and GMAT skill files where, like you said, you were exposed to some of those harder questions. You were able to lock in on how to do the question in the right amount of time, right? And the other thing that I think really goes to show towards that excellent Q90 score is the journey grades, the course level grades that you've really got, where you're at a consistent A. You're at the top of all the test takers on the platform. And that really helped you do well later on in cementing, where we can see your accuracy on medium and your accuracy on hard questions. And we can quite frankly see that here as well. It's just absolutely, absolutely stellar, right? So all of that right, hard, structured work really paid off. So kudos to you for that. Yeah. One thing that I think perhaps we haven't talked about as explicitly, but we saw in the course just now, are the process skills and process skills that you would have learned, right? Addition to the concepts, we teach you about these certain set of skills. How useful was that for tackling those harder questions on the GMAT side?
yeah, see, all the like, yeah, totally relevant because obviously the basic thing is the concept, but when it comes to a timed environment, you need a very robust playbook to operate in that limited time. So the for every single concept there was a kind of a like a structured approach, a structured process that you follow, and that is exactly what I tried to stick to in taking the mocks or in taking the real GMAT. And I think that is very effective, and you follow the process, you get the answer. And there is also like the process skill also will help you to kind of figure out very quickly if that question you are able to solve, or you should move on, like if you have a standard process. But if you do not have that discipline, I think it becomes, that assessment also becomes difficult, and there is a chance that you will lose time, and the rest of the section will go for a toss. So yeah, that's my take.
Understood. And I think, I mean, obviously, you took these skills, these learnings really to heart because now we're sitting with that Q90, and that's a perfect score, right? Zero mistakes across the board. So that structure, that process, really well done, Manpreet, extremely well done, right? I think the next most impressive thing you've done is really on the DI side of things, where you started out with a D75, now you're sitting with a D80, and that's with a perfect data sufficiency and two-part analysis score. Unlike quant, however, we know that each of the different question types are very, very different across the entire DI section. So let's break it down, right? Let's start with DS, right? So and DS is a question type that confuses a lot of test takers. How did you really approach the DS question type, and what made you so successful there?
Yeah. When I started out, DS looked tricky to me, and the simple reason is it was not like it was difficult.
Mhm.
It is just that I probably lacked the process. That's the single most element I would say critical to the DS section, data sufficiency, because you do not actually have to solve the question. You have to figure out if the information is sufficient. There's a huge difference between these two things, and I think there was a nice module in eGMAT where there was a process to it, like you you kind of had that AD and BCE kind of a segregation. You're able to quickly eliminate. You exactly know what you're doing in those 2 to 3 minutes that you spent. And I think without that process that I got through the eGMAT, there's a absolute like a clear flow chart of how you have to go about it. Like you look at the question and what do you do? And BS section is pretty much, I would say, impossible without that kind of a structure. Like it is, it is very likely that somebody will spend little more time than he is supposed to do without following that structured process. So it took me a little bit of time to like get used to that, but I think it was very, very helpful. It, I think, and that's the single reason why I think I was able to get most of the DS questions right during the last phases of my prep journey as well as on the real GMAT. So yeah.
Understood. And I think the TPA section as well, TPA is also one of those question types where it can be really difficult to juggle the data set that's given to you. How did you really approach TPA question types, and what kind of skill sets were very important there?
So TPA is kind of a question type which probably will be new to most of the GMAT takers, because that is a kind of a new kind of a question that you don't typically see. You typically see an MCQ question. In two part, you have to get two of those parts right. So I think what really helped me again here is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You have to kind of like make that assessment, right? If I can make use of some of the relationships that I'm able to derive from the question. So I think there was a nice session on eGMAT. There was a video because it was a relatively new module that had been prepared when the GMAT Focus edition came in, and that was very helpful. So I think there's a fine sense of balance you need to maintain between actually solving the question to actually understanding the question and also understanding the data set that is given in the option, and being able to kind of build and establish a kind of a relationship. And I think I used to struggle in two-part analysis a lot in the first few phases of the preparation, because you tend to read the question and then you kind of uh, tend to forget that, hey, there could be multiple answers also to this question, but you are actually supposed to determine which of the pairs is making sense in many cases. So I think in two-part analysis, that is the skill, like having the fine sense of balance between uh, understanding what the question wants, but maybe the answer to it may be a lot of possibilities. So I think the course that I did on eGMAT, that was fairly helpful because it covered a broad range of possibilities and scenarios. Like one I fairly remember was in the mathematical two-part analysis, where you see the question, you derive a relation, and the data set actually will be the answer will be something which bears that relation. So there could be multiple answer possible also. And for the verbal kind of two-part analysis also, like you have to kind of navigate. So I think with a very solid foundation in quant, you do the quant course first, or you do the verbal course before going into the DI. And that solid foundation in the DI section, you actually apply those skills, but in a little different kind of a format. So the two-part analysis is kind of a newer format that way, but I think the course really helped me to deal with the scope of what it really entails, and also to be able to apply it well in an exam time environment.
Understood. And I mean, obviously, like you said, you've done this really, really well because you're at that 100th percentile for both of these subsections, right? And that really has paid off. Do you have any insights to share on the GITA or MSR side of things? Because I know there as well, you've put in a whole lot of effort and you've done the course really, really well.
Yeah, so I think at least I can start with the graphs. So I think one key insight I would like to share is um, the questions on the graph section tend to be uh, like a little, like it is very possible that you will fall for a trap in a graph question. So I think what really helps in both graph section and the MSR section is you read the question well and with high amount of concentration, because those options there will definitely, there will be a few traps in there. I think that is something I learned a lot when I was practicing on the eGMAT, that I was falling for many of those traps. So I think that is a key piece of insight. And sometimes on the real GMAT, the statements could be a little complicated and convoluted. So it is very important that you apply the RC skills as well there, so that you're able to infer the information. It might also have a lot of unnecessary information. So I think the main key to success on both the MSR and the graph section is you are able to weed out the unnecessary pieces of information, and you are able to, again, you have to balance between going deep into the information that is presented and the question that is asked. So I think DI section is all about getting that balance, because that balance is the only way somebody will be able to crack those questions in a limited time. So from the background that we come, we like, in as engineers, we want to always go deep dive and completely solve it. But yeah, I think one of the key insights which was shared in one of the webinars of eGMAT, hey, you have to read like a manager. So that's the first mindset you have to bring in. I think Rajat had mentioned in one of his webinars that you have to start thinking about data sets, and you have to start thinking about it like a manager. So I think, again, it's a mindset thing, and coupled with the solid foundation of skills you have, I think that is good enough for somebody to do well on the graph and as well as the MSR section.
Understood. And let's kind of briefly explore the verbal side as well. On verbal for CR, you had 100% accuracy. How did the learnings from both master comprehension and critical reasoning really enable that kind of accuracy on the GMAT?
Sure. So yeah, verbal section probably was a lot of hard work for me to like get to a decent score, and to get 100 percentile on the CR. Obviously, it involved a lot of change in the approach that you take. And to be fairly honest, started from a ground zero as far as the verbal section is concerned. When it came to CR, I think I did struggle a little bit for a long time. And then I think there was intervention from like you specifically. You had shared a lot of the key insights. You had written those emails with specific points that you need to do and specific. So because otherwise CR can feel like it's like a mystery puzzle and you don't really know but what to do with it. But I think the way that you look at it is you have to look at it like an argument. You have to look at the structure. And I think there was a error log that was provided by the eGMAT team, right? You, whenever you make an error, it took me kind of a while to get used to it in the first place, but in hindsight now I understand what it meant. So basically you look at the argument, you look at the conclusion first, and if it is not the resolve the paradox question, for most of them, strengthen weaken assumption, you look at the argument, you look at the conclusion. You do you understand how somebody is able to make that conclusion? What does the evidence see? So what is the linkage? So there were all this analysis on the eGMAT for every question. I think uh, how you look at the argument, how you identify or visualize the conclusion. You look at how the author is supporting that conclusion. What is the evidence and linkage? So, without going into much of the details there, I think what really helped me is that structured approach of looking at the argument. And second is, it is very likely that if you just read the question statement, the conclusion, and then you go into the options, it is very likely to fall for traps, because if without a proper sense of understanding on what the conclusion is. So I think another key insight there was pre-thinking, where you kind of try to force yourself without taking a look at the options. You kind of try to figure out that, hey, how can I say strengthen this, or how can I possibly weaken this? I think this was a very important concept that was taught on the eGMAT modules, and that really helped, because then you have a more unpolluted perspective of what the answer should be without looking at the traps. Obviously, the answer may not be exact to what you find, but the way you think about that is what helps. So I think that was very valuable to me in handling those CR arguments in the main GMAT exam.
Understood. Right. So you mentioned that my insights were valuable. And one thing that our viewers might not know is that you were part of the Last Mile Push program where I was really your mentor. And I have been your mentor from pretty much the start of this journey, right? So how did that kind of mentorship, how did that guidance really help throughout this journey?
Okay. Yeah. So I think for me it was like probably I would say you were more invested than me in this entire. So I think that pretty much sums it up of what I want to really say, that I think the biggest part of the entire GMAT thing is to have somebody as your co-pilot, and I think I had Rida as my co-pilot. So that was the biggest valuable thing for me with the association with GMAT. So Rida pretty much has seen all the highs, probably has also seen all my lows, and the thing is, uh, you just haven't been a coach planning my test readiness, planning my syllabus, planning what I need to do on what day, those smart sheets that you put together, because I was getting confused on how to really manage my time. So that it's a pretty huge investment that I saw from from Rida. And to be honest, when I wanted to take the GMAT, I wanted to take it to like to kind of make her proud. So that actually sums up how much Rida was invested in my whole journey right from the beginning. So I think it's you and to as a working professional, I think that kind of support is absolutely invaluable. And for me, it was because it helped me plan out and to meet my timelines, even if it was about, hey, should I book the test date? And so everything, right? This is uncharted waters, like you haven't done it before. So it was always good to have like a confidant who you could always, like most of the times, probably annoy or bother, but that was the I am absolutely grateful for this mentorship program that helped me navigate through this dicey, tricky path of getting the GMAT. Yeah.
First things first, I am incredibly proud of you and what you have achieved, right? I am incredibly proud. And none of this, and this goes for all of our own students out there who might be watching, never is it a bother when you reach out to us for whatever you are reaching out to us for, right? As your mentors, we're here to help you and we're happy to help you, right? Reach out to us if you need it. But for Manpreet, he has been a stellar student. It has been a joy to mentor him. And I've said this to you multiple times as well. And it is the absolute truth, right? I'm so incredibly proud of everything that you've achieved without question at all. Yeah.
Thank you, Rita.
Yeah.
And one more thing I just wanted to say, like when we were in that prep journey, I think one key thing I need to also highlight is the responsiveness. You pretty much I got, like, even if I had any doubt, I write an email and I think Rita would respond in less than a few hours. So there was never a lead time of more than a day, and that is absolutely like phenomenal, because you don't have to wait. If you need an input, you need something. And also as a part of Olympia, I think that you have done enough. Like there's been a lot. Like I also remember Rita had actually put together quizzes for me, like on, like, specifically when I was struggling with the CR section. So I can't expect more personal touch than this in the prep journey. So absolutely thankful of that, Rita. And yeah, thank you so much for your kind words for me. Yeah.
Happy to have been a part, right? Okay. So now we've kind of looked at my role, we've looked at the role of all these individual processes and the course. And I think one part that we touched upon, but maybe haven't dived as deep into, is Scholaranium and test readiness, which were two very critical parts of your journey. Let's talk about Scholaranium first. What is it? Why was it so valuable? And what kind of inputs did it really give you?
Yeah. So obviously, in the initial phases when you're building the concepts, you do a few questions, but I think Scholarium questions were very true representative of the GMAT questions in the first place. The best part about Scholaranium is I think it's a greatly designed product and a platform with a lot of like data that you get out of it. So for me, as I was done with the courses, I used to do my practice on Scholaranium, and also the cementing quizzes came from there. So the biggest value there was the customization that you're able to bring, like to the finest level. Like what is the section that you want to deal with? What is the difficulty you want to deal with? What is the subtopic you want to deal with? Uh, and it generates data sets, and it actually registers the data on the back end. So even if your journey say 2 months of in 2 months of your prep journey, you want to understand like where you have been weak or where you have been strong, so those data, those dashboards come in very handy, because you get a very quick view of, hey, suppose if I want to spend some time after I'm done, exactly do I need to spend my time? Where is exactly is my weakness? Where exactly is my strength? So I think in that way, Scholaranium was a very well designed product for to optimize for learning, and it really helped me a lot in going through and it has a lot of questions. So and I did practice a lot of them multiple times as well. So to my and I think it's also very important that you pick the right sources of questions to practice, because I've also realized that there are a lot of sources where the questions may not be a true representative, and you might tend to waste a lot of time because they are not, first of all, not a true representative of what you might see on the GMAT. So in that way, Scholaranium, I was very assured that, hey, this question is exactly how you kind of saw on the official mocks and everything. So there was an assurance, and the data that it generated was of high value. So
Understood. Got it. So now, obviously, you've made all of these really large improvements. You've gone through a lot of this journey and you've developed a lot of new skill sets as well, right? Looking back at all of it, right, including your testing experience and so on, what do you think is something that all prospective test takers should take note of, either if they're starting out or they're somewhere in between or they're just on the verge of giving up on the GMAT as a whole?
yeah. Yeah, okay. So, well, I would just reinstate it again. GMAT is a computer adaptive test. I think we are not used to it naturally, to taking a computer adaptive test. So, my key insight would be to to expect maybe hard questions, and to work on the mindset. Like obviously you do the eGMAT, you do the course, you build the concepts, but I think there is also a little bit of effort that goes into after the concept solidification stage to the test taking stage. There is a lot of work that needs to be done in that stage, where you actually have to apply all the concepts in a timed environment. You have to make a balance between when you have to move on from that question and those things. That is also a very critical aspect. So as you take mocks, you do the error logs, and that is, I think, where those test readiness things also come into picture, right? When you take the mock, you understand you fumble in this particular section in this particular type, then you customize for that, because it may not be always practical to take a full mock, right? You may not even cover that weakness. So I think the biggest learning is when you take the mock, then you kind of derive the data that the platform provides, then you take a very structured approach to covering those weaknesses specifically, and obviously building the mindset. And I think that would be my 2 cents here, that hey, mindset is equally important as compared to the prep that we all do. So it's also a mind game that the GMAT tries to play with you.
Of course. No, yeah. I think, like you said, the facts are one side, but how you approach the facts, how you mentally work through them is just as, if not more important in certain scenarios, right? So I think throughout this all, Manpreet, like I said, with your amazing performance, with all the hard work you've put in, you've really given everyone some solid learnings. So thank you so much for your time and congrats once more on your amazing, amazing score. All the best for your next steps. And on behalf of the entire eGMAT team, good luck. We believe in you and thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you so much.
And to all our viewers out there, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. But to all of you, all the best, happy learning, and take care. Bye bye.